Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Booth. Howie Chaney, the interim host tonight for one Randy Cunningham that is a proud papa sitting on the sideline watching his baby girl play center and wide receiver for Hickson Wildcats TSSAA flag football team. And, of course, we're always joined by the 1984 Valley Head State Championship player, Phil Harris. And tonight we got special guest, Coach Chris Elmore from the Fort Payne Wildcats. Well, Coach, let me give you the proper introduction. We've got the 2024 region champ, Fort Payne Wildcats, Coach Chris Elmore. Coach Elmore, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys inviting me.
We appreciate you taking out the time because, Phil, this is the second season starting this week here as far as the playoffs rolling around, and Fort Payne gets to kick that thing off at home with the first game at home. And, Coach, that's got to be a big kind of like what we talked about off the air, a big thrill, but also a big surprise after starting off 0-2.
Yeah, it's anytime you host a playoff game, you've obviously had a pretty good year, and so we're excited to be in that situation. And probably, like you said, means a little more, losing the first two like we did to two good football teams. And we knew when we lost those two, it wasn't like we'd lost to somebody that wasn't very good. But still, when you start out 0-2, and then more importantly, I've said this before, I think when I've talked to Phil and them on Friday nights, we're down there at Southside and down 13-3 in the fourth quarter, and just could not do anything offensively really at all that night. And to find a way to win that game on two Connor Hughes field goals and a Carter Tinker, unbelievable run, broke about 5 tackles, and then got the ensuing 2-point conversion, kind of turned everything around. So, and of course, looking back at that game, that obviously was, I guess, kind of the de facto region championship game. Nobody knew it at the time, but both of us were able to go on and beat Gadsden City, which was probably a shock to a lot of people that both of us were able to beat Gadsden City. But sometimes things work out your way, and to win the region after that start was definitely probably it's what our kids wanted to do. It was our goal. It's what we were trying to do. But I'm sure most people thought there was no chance of that happening in the fourth quarter of that Southside game. But our kids found a way, and a lot of toughness and resiliency out of them for sure.
Right, absolutely. I'm fixing to turn it over to Phil for a little while. Like I've told y'all, I'm at the county band competition. I'm going to go watch my daughter perform real quick. Then I'll be joining y'all back. I'll be listening to y'all, so maybe that way I can remember everything that's said, and I won't backtrack and ask the same question again. So, Phil, I'll turn it over to you, and I'll be back here in a few minutes.
All right. Well, Coach, again, welcome in. Of course, these two are – we're in the football mode. They got other things going on, but we appreciate you joining us. I know it's a busy week. You're getting into the playoffs, and we kind of hate to bother football coaches this time of year, but I wanted to get you on because it's been such a great year, and you touched on that Southside win. That's one of those where you came to a crossroad where this team may have survived had they lost that game, is to get in the playoffs. Definitely it probably wouldn't have put you in position to win the region. But, all things changed on that night, and what I commend about this football team is, yes, they were due to beat Gadsden City, and I felt good about it going into the game. I felt like they had an ample opportunity to win that. But what I have been impressed by this team is how they have taken care of business after that Gadsden City win.
Yeah, that's been kind of the message is that, after we won that game, and, I've said this before to people, my dad and I talk about this kind of stuff. We could play Gadsden City 20 times and they'd probably beat us 19. But we were able to win that one on that night, which was special for our kids. And like you said, the fear after that game was, how would we respond? We responded greatly through adversity, but how would we respond after so-called reaching the top? It wasn't really reaching the top, but you know what I mean. And our kids have done really, really, really well the last 3 weeks. We haven't played perfect, but you never play perfect. But we've played at a high level the last 3 weeks, and against teams obviously not as good as Gadsden City. That's not hard to figure out if you look at scores and stuff. But still, 3 good programs, and but it would have been easy to to have a letdown any one of those 3 nights and not play very well, and that really hasn't happened. We've had for the most part 3 solid performances in a row, and biggest thing is we're continuing to get better at practice too, which is where you really see it. I mean, I think you can tell at practice. But watching practice film, what's the mindset of your team, and the last 3 weeks, it's been still about progression and improvement, and that's good to see this time of year.
Yeah, of course, a lot of that's where leadership come involved. And the reason I was thinking about that, Coach, is past history. Last year you had the hiccup against Lee, a game you probably should have won, and I'm sure you cautioned these guys because you didn't want that to happen again.
Yeah, we brought back really since I've been here about 4 times that this kind of stuff's happened. Not to go into the history books, but my first year we went down to Carver, Birmingham, and had won 6 of 7, I think, and just did not play very good on the last game of the season and got beat down there. Very next year we were 7-1, went over to Coleman, who had a good football team, but we just weren't very excited to play. Just kind of went through the motions and got whipped by a good Coleman team over there that night. That was the year we went 9-3, and that was kind of the one blemish I thought was we just didn't play very good at Coleman. And then 2 years ago we were 7-1, went over to Athens again against a very good Athens team, but they were not in the playoffs. They had played obviously a tough region and had some injuries early in the year, and played okay, but just again did not play with a lot of excitement, and got beat over there again by a good Gadsden team, and that was a year we went 8-3, and so that was kind of the message these last 3 weeks is these are things that have happened before, and we're gonna try to prevent that from happening, because we're going to try to our motto's kind of been the Mike Leach quote that people have probably heard about being the most excited team on the field, and these kids have kind of bought into that, and they love playing, and we've tried to go into every environment here lately and be the most excited team, and that's what we said at Pelham last week. Pelham not having a great season, 1-8, and it was their senior night, but I told our kids that I wanted us to be more excited to play football at Pelham than they did, and I thought we did a good job of that. I thought we really brought the energy and played hard and played physical, and so did Pelham. But it was a good football game. We were able to make enough plays to win it. But easy to go on the road this time of year, especially in a non-region game, and kind of go through the motions. So really proud of our kids for learning from those past mistakes and not letting that happen to us.
Yeah, that because that's a good way to go into the playoffs. Because when you go to somewhere like Pelham, that's in that unknown factor. You don't know what you're going to get because you don't know who they've played. Just like with Athens that you was talking about, they may have had a difficult schedule, and I know a couple of years ago they had a real good football team. So it's a team that has won. So there's always that caution flag that goes up. Well, Coach, I want to ask you about a couple of things before we go further. But your wife Cassandra, and then you've got two children that are in school. Cassandra, your wife, she has to be the backbone of the family, because any head coach has to have somebody to take up the slack, because football takes up a lot of your time.
Yeah, I mean, being a coach's wife is a tough job, and I saw that with my own 2 eyes growing up, as watching my mom and the things that she had to sacrifice and do for my dad during those times, and so when I met Cassandra, I actually wasn't in coaching at the time when I met Cassandra, but as we started to date and get closer to possibly get engaged, I told her that I was thinking about doing it, and that's what my dad had done and what my granddad had done. I just felt I had a kind of a calling to do it, and so she was in school to be an elementary education teacher, so we decided to get married, and she's from Northeast Ohio, just outside of Cleveland, about 45 minutes east of Cleveland, so. And I'd met her up there, and when I was working up there, and so we get married in June of 2005, and the next day we moved to Alabama, and the rest is history. She's been down here ever since, and she taught first grade in Hueytown for 8 years when I was there, and then she moved over and taught at first grade over in Chelsea for 5, and now has been doing kindergarten here in Fort Payne for 7, and so she's gone everywhere I've been, and been with me through it, and been through it as a time when I was a assistant football coach and a head basketball coach at Hueytown, and those long hours those basketball coaches spend in the winter, and those tough nights getting home at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday and having to go to school and the next day. And she went through all that, and she's just been a champion the whole time. And takes care of everything at home and the kids, and obviously a big supporter on Friday night, and always is somebody I can count on to find the positive in things. And she even said back when we were struggling here at the start of the year, she goes, I've never. She said, you're usually the most positive guy, and I'm struggling right now because you're not real positive. And I said, well, I'm trying, but this has been a tough start. But she helped us get through that, and she's always been a big support of our teams. And you're right, you can't do what myself and all these other guys across the state do without somebody at home that not only appreciates what you do and why you do it, but also supports you and the team while you're doing it.
Well, your two kids, Callie and Troy, are they following into the athletic footsteps?
Yeah, Callie's she's actually ironic because she's over in Guntersville tonight, starting her first night of travel volleyball for this club season. She's played volleyball the last several years and was on the JV volleyball team for Fort Payne this year. She's a 10th grader, and that seems to be her niche. She seems to like that, doesn't really play any other sports but that, and really has fallen in love with that sport. And then Troy, likes football and golf. Golf's been kind of his thing so far. We've traveled a lot across the Southeast here in the last 3 or 4 summers, going to golf tournaments and taking him there, and he's made some improvements there and seems to enjoy that. But he's itching to play some, as he calls it, real football. He's played flag football the last several years, and so next year he'll be a 7th grader, so he'll be starting with our junior high program. So he's excited to, as he says, put on the pads and hit somebody is what he says. So we'll see if he's going to do that or not. I don't know, but he does. He's one of our ball boys, and of course that's the same thing I did at that age. And it's funny, you don't even get a chance to notice your kid out there. He's doing a great job of what he's got to do on Friday night, but I never even really get a chance to notice it because you're so consumed with the game. But it's nice having him out there with us and on the field and getting to be a part of the action.
Well, Coach, tell me this: having kids, how does that make you a better football coach?
Well, I think it makes you a little more empathetic. I think of every different situation, and probably before I had kids, or especially before my kids got old enough to be in athletics at all, it's easy to maybe be frustrated with a kid or disappointed with a kid because he doesn't perform well at practice or in a game or whatever it is. And I think when your kids get older, you start to see that not every day's their best day, and some days aren't great. And you try to keep that in mind when you're dealing with all the kids that we deal with. I think I've matured over the years and learned that I've said this before. Haven't met a kid yet that went out to practice or went out to a game and tried to mess up on purpose. Those kids I haven't met. If those kids are out there, I haven't met them. The kids want to do well. They want to play well. They want to perform well. And so when they don't, and even if it's a deal where they're not giving you great effort or their attitude's not great, there's usually something else going on. I think that's what you've got to try to get to the bottom of as the coach is. Hey, what's going on? What and a lot of times if you'll talk to them, they'll share stuff with you that you wouldn't have known was happening, and they explain some of the situation. And I think that's part of what why we do this. I mean, winning games and winning region championships is fun, but what I've always said, the same thing that I would have said about my dad, and the same thing I would have said about his assistant coaches was that I want to be the kind of coach that makes a difference, not just on the field, but it makes a difference in these guys as far as, their futures and how they act and how they do things and how they, behave around people. And again, with football, all sports do this, but football in its own unique way creates a lot of toughness that you've got to have to survive in this world, because this world's not always easy. This world's not always fair. It's not always going to go like you want it to go. And I think football teaches you that when things don't go your way, you can either complain and point fingers and blame somebody else, or you can get up the next day and go to work and do the best you can. And that's what we hope these kids will learn out of this. And I know this particular bunch has definitely learned that. And it seems like every team we've had here lately is I don't know where I even got the quote. I got it from somewhere. People think I've said it. I didn't say it, but I probably stole it, the quote of, tough times don't last, but tough people do. And I think that's something we've said around here a lot here lately in the last several years. And we've got some tough kids here at Fort Payne that are resilient, and I think that's going to benefit them, throughout their life.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Coach. It's a good statement, and because I think the number one thing I learned from football coaches, the number one thing that I always remember is they teach you to have accountability, because you have to have accountability, because it's not always somebody else's fault, and oftentimes, even if it is, you still got to survive.
Yeah, and that's we talk about that all. One of the things we talk about on offensive side of football is it takes 11 people to complete a pass. You can sit there and blame the quarterback or blame the receiver, but it takes all 11 of us to run the right pass protection, execute that pass protection, run the right route, catch the ball, throw the ball, the different things that goes into that. And so when one play doesn't work, it's not one person's fault. It's our collective fault. And like you said, the accountability of that team of saying, hey, myself as the right guard, I've got to fix that. I cost us an incompletion there because I didn't protect the way I should have protected. And I think that's something that we, really try to, focus on with all of our kids, about how it's a team game, and that it takes everybody doing their own individual job. And, sure, the quarterback's going to get a lot of the press, and so is the receiver, and so is the guy who got the interception or whatever it was. You have to pardon me, my light's going out here. 1 second. We got sensitive lights here. But I think that accountability, because they know their teammate is counting on them, is something they've learned, and I think, again, will benefit them later in life, because when you get older and hopefully they're married and have kids or at a job or whatever, their wife's counting on them, their kids counting on them, their boss is counting on them, whoever it is. And so that's hopefully something they learn here with us.
Yeah, definitely. So, I remember Coach Kirby used to tell us all the time that there's only one person, especially on offense, there's one person not accounted for. But it is, and every play is designed to score if everybody does their part. And that's just the way the game of football works. And like you said, it's not going to happen every time, but that's the goal in the end, is to score on every play, because every play is designed to score if everybody does their part. Well, Coach, you started out in assistant coach at Hueytown. You were the offensive coordinator there. How did you end up in Birmingham?
Well, that's an interesting story. So, when I graduated college, so I played junior college golf at Gadsden State, played golf there for 2 years. And then my goal, or my aspirations, were to be a golf professional in a country club and teach golf lessons and work on a golf course and that sort of thing. So I went to school at Mississippi State. They have a golf management program for that. So I went there and spent 3.5 years there, and did some internships while I was in school there, and made some connections and worked at some different golf courses. And one of the places I worked at during my time at Mississippi State, on one of my summer internships, I was up there for about 11 weeks, I guess, was in Cleveland, Ohio. I worked at a course in East Cleveland, that private country club there. And that was the summer of '98. And so, like I said, spent 11 weeks, maybe 12 weeks there, but had a great time, enjoyed it. Great golf course, great membership. I really made some good connections up there, and graduated about 1.5 years later at Mississippi State. And the boss, or my boss up in Cleveland, asked me if I was looking for a full-time job, and I was. And so went up there starting in 2000 and started working up there at that same course for 5 years, and would work basically from April to Christmas up there. Obviously, there's not much golf played there in the winter. And then I'd go to Florida for 2 or 3 months and work at some places down there just to kind of pass the time. And but toward my last year up in Cleveland, 04, I guess, coworker, kind of a blind date thing. Is ironically, this is a funny story. And I've seen Randy Owen before. I don't think I've ever got a chance to tell him this. Alabama was making one of their farewell tours through Cleveland. And I said, man, I'm a Fort Payne guy. I got to go see Alabama one more time. And of course, I remember growing up around the June Jam, and that was literally half a mile from my house. We could sit on the back porch and hear the June Jam all day. So I said, I got to go see Alabama one more time on their last tour. And so I asked this the girl that I work with, I said, do you have any friends that like country music. I said, I got 2 tickets, and the person that was going to go with me can't go with me. And I said, I just don't want the ticket to go to waste. You got any friends that would want to go? And she said, yeah, I think I got a girl that would like to go. She likes country music. So she sets me up on a blind date with Cassandra, and we go to an Alabama concert. Now, I was told that Cassandra knew Alabama music, but that was not true. She had no idea. She didn't know who Alabama was. But so we go, and we had a good time with the concert, enjoyed it, and then the rest is history, so to speak. We kept dating, and then when we were getting ready to move back to Alabama, came back down here, I guess in the winter one time when I'd kind of made that decision to get out of golf and into education and coaching, and Dad and I went down to Birmingham and just kind of went to meet some guys he knew, went over to Thompson and talked to one of their coaches, went to a couple other places, and went over to Hueytown to talk with Jeff Smith, who's now at Walter Welborn. And Jeff was ironically, Dad hired Jeff late in Dad's career to work here at Fort Payne. And then about a week later, Coach Battles had called Coach Smith, and of course Coach Smith played for Coach Battles at Welborn, and said, "Hey, I got a job for you if you're still interested." And Coach Smith had to call my dad back and say, "I was really looking forward to working for you, but I can't pass this opportunity up." And so he went to work with Coach Battles, but they'd always stayed in connection. And so Dad took me by to see Coach Smith at Hueytown, and just told him what I was doing and was looking for any opportunity that there was, and really kind of start off maybe thinking I was just going to be a volunteer, and then they were able to find a job, kind of emergency certificate type deal. And went and worked for Coach Smith there in 2005. Helped coach the 9th grade team, and then the very next year, he moved me up to the varsity staff, and I got more of a full-time job teaching at Hueytown, and then stayed there for the next 3 years. He was there, and then he left there in 2009 and went to Welborn, where he is now. And Coach Matt Scott came in, and I worked for Matt for 4 more years, and so I spent 8 years total there at Hueytown. I've often said this. I say this to Coach Smith every time I see him, and he reminds me too. He reminds me that he got me my start, but he don't have to remind me. I remember if it wasn't for him, I don't know. I may have, maybe somebody gave me a shot. I don't know, but he had enough, I guess, in him that he was willing to give a guy like me a chance, and then I went in there and tried to do the best I could, and do the job like he wanted it, and learned a lot from him. Learned a ton from him on just organization and how to motivate kids and how to work them hard and get them ready to play, so Coach Smith's the one that kind of got me to the Birmingham area, and then in 2013 I was able to get the Chelsea job as the head football coach there, and spent 5 years there at Chelsea from 13 to 18, and then came to Fort Payne in 2018. So that's kind of how it's a long way around it, but yeah. So Randy Owen and Alabama had a little bit to do with it. So it was a neat story that not everybody knows, but it was my wife and I's first date was their concert.
And it's funny how God puts you in certain places, and how fate works.
Yeah, I tell people all the time, God's got a plan. All you got to do is trust it. And that happened. And then when Matt Scott left Hueytown to go to Gadsden City, I really thought I had a pretty good chance of getting the Hueytown job as the head football coach. Been there 8 years, and felt like most of the people in the community wanted me to be the head coach. And I applied for the job, interviewed for it, felt pretty good about it, and didn't get it. The principal decided to go with our defense coordinator instead of myself, and good choice by her too as well. I understood it, but it was still disappointing, and felt like the world was kind of coming down around me. And then literally a week later, I got the Chelsea job, and so things happen for a reason. I've always said that, and sometimes you don't know what the reason is, and sometimes it's not always easy, but it goes back to what we tell these kids all the time. That's what I told them back when we lost to Scottsboro and Guntersville. So, guys, I can't tell you why we've lost these 2 games. I don't know why. It's frustrating. We're disappointed. We're upset. I said, but there's probably something that the Lord is putting us through right now and testing us, and He wants to see how we're going to respond. And I know that sounds silly to some people. They say, well, it's just football, and I get that, but I think there's trials in every part of life, whether it's football or your job or whatever. And I think that was what was being tested to us there, to see how we would respond. Would we rally together, or would we quit and give up and point and blame people? And I think that's what helps you learn stuff in life too. And it's like I said, it's happened to me multiple times. And again, it started even with I mean, who would have known that going to Cleveland, Ohio, to work on a golf course would be where I met my wife, but that's what happened, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Of course, the big thing is you got that call at Fort Payne. Of course, Paul Ellis decided to retire and move over to Georgia. When you got that call to come back to Fort Payne, how did you feel about that? How did you feel at that point?
Yeah, I mean, that was a situation too where when Coach Ellis retired, I obviously was interested. Having played here and that my dad having coached here, but we were also, we were really happy at the time at Chelsea. Things had gone well. We had great relationships. We really liked our church there. Really liked our friends in our church, and kids were happy. And so I emailed Mr. Cunningham and who was the superintendent at the time, and Mr. Jett, and who was the principal, and just said, look, I'm definitely interested, but if you guys are not interested in me, I completely understand. I'm happy where I'm at. I don't necessarily have to leave, but I would be remiss if I didn't at least reach out and see if there was any interest. And they both got back to me and said, we're definitely interested. We'd love for you to come up and talk to us. And I did. And not knowing, what would come of it, if they really wanted me to come or not. And talking to Mr. Jett, Mr. Cunningham during that process was, put me at ease that this is where I needed to be. And, and that when it all worked out, it was a little obviously disappointing when you're somewhere for 5 years and you build the relationships that you did. In fact, we were at Pelham the other night, and my quarterback from Chelsea, who was a 3-year starter for me, came to the game and watched. I hadn't seen him in 2 or 3 years, and that's the kind of stuff that people don't, I guess, realize when coaches make changes. You're leaving back a part of you at those places that were very, very close to you, and so it was not easy to say goodbye to those kids and those families in Chelsea. But at the same time, I knew this was the area that I needed to go, and it's been great to be here and be a part of this the last 7 years.
Well, I think a lot of people are resilient. They understand if you're better than yourself, they're not going to hate you for it. And of course, it's the relationships you make that's important anyway. Well, Coach, now that this is your 7th season at Fort Payne, you've won I think you're like 52 and 26 now. Of course, your dad was a longtime coach from 84 to 98 and at Fort Payne. I know your coaching style's different. How are they different, and how are they the same?
Well, I think, probably the biggest difference is just schematically. I mean, obviously the game's changed a little bit, and he's even told me that he came in one day. I don't even know when it was. It might have been the off season or something. We were sitting around, or I was sitting here having a meeting with the quarterbacks, talking about different things and coverages, and he didn't tell me this. He told my mom this. My mom told me later. He said he didn't know, he couldn't understand the word I was saying. He didn't know what I was talking about and what was going on. But at the same time, if he came in today and drew up the triple option and talked about how to block it and when to block it this and how to block it this way against this front, then I would be sitting there going, okay, I think I get it. But I played in the system. But even though I played in it, it's still the complexity of what he did back then. About you had to know how to block all those plays that they had against all the different fronts they would see. And so I think schematically is probably where we're different. I think and I've had different people tell me this. It's been neat to guys that I played with or I watched play for him. I've had sons come through the program since I've been here and play for me, and so I've had some of them tell me that the organization and the attention to detail and the preparing you for every possible situation is almost the same. And I think that's what I probably learned from him the most is that, we're going to try to prepare for every possible situation there is. And our schemes are different probably, but how we prepare and how we try to get the team ready to play the game is probably very, very similar.
Yeah, well, and I think I understand what you're coming from. He was very detailed, played defense, run football, short game. You put a little more personality into it, but I think you have to do that because you have to keep these kids entertained. They don't want that boring football. They want to be a little exciting. And like last year when y'all run that play that went viral against Mortimer Jordan, those are the type of things that keeps these kids interested. Yeah,
I think so. And I think we try not to do too much of that, but at the same time, I think there needs to be something that the kids, kind of look forward to, I guess you'd say. And I think, over the years we've seen that, everywhere I've been, when you do stuff like that and when you work on it and you practice it, you got to have the guts to call it in the game because or your kids quit believing in it, and so over the years, the different things that we've had we've had some different little situations like that where we've ran them and trick plays, if you will, and we've been successful more times than we haven't, I guess, on those things. And I think every time that you are successful, the kids believe a little bit more, and then they believe in what you're doing and how you're doing it. And that's what happened last year. We had practiced that play for 6-7 weeks and didn't know if we'd ever get the right situation to call it. And one of my assistant coaches reminded me about it in the timeout, and he was right. It was the perfect time to call it. It was out of a timeout, and our kids executed it perfectly. But when that happens, I think that gives more credibility to what you're doing, and probably more buy-in to the program because they become more excited about what's the next thing we're going to do. Which at the end of the day, it's not about tricking people or whatever. It's about lining up and executing. But you got to have a little bit of that, I think, to like you said, keep people interested. Yeah,
definitely so. Well, I want to get toward this year, Coach. Of course, you've had a lot of you hear the names Carter Tinker and Dax Vernador and Ryder Engel, Connor Hughes. You hear those names a lot. Name some of the kids that have really been the unsung heroes for this team because, it takes everybody to make a region champion, a 2 team, because it wasn't just them. There had to be a lot of players that stepped up that really may have just been role players in the past that really helped this football team.
Oh yeah, we've had a bunch of those guys. Another guy you mentioned that probably does get a lot of press, but he's kind of a quiet guy, kind of unassuming guy, is Brandon Oliver, who's made the North-South All-Star team too. Brandon's up to 50 catches again this year. He had 40 last year, and he's been, as he's gotten healthy. He was not healthy the first 2 or 3 weeks, and did the best he could, but just was not at full speed. And since he's kind of been back full speed since week 4, week 5, he's been the player we thought he could be, and he's had a great year. But what I appreciate, I think, the most about coaching is what you're talking about, in that we got some guys on defense like, and I'll try to name them all here, like Levi Crow, Hunter Goza, Tremaine Smith, Parker Wilson. Those 4 guys in particular are seniors that have played a little bit the last couple of years, maybe special teams, maybe rotated in some, but never been a full-time starter. And those guys, it'd be easy for them to, get frustrated. Hey, maybe I'll go play a different sport. Maybe I won't play football. Maybe I'll just go get a job, because that's what typically happens, in this day and age when kids don't, that's the only I think sometimes the only I don't like about high school athletics right now is that if somebody's not a starter, they think they're a failure, which is not true. I mean, if you're not a starter, it just means it's not your time just yet. And but like you said, everybody's got a role in the team. But those 4 guys in particular were not starters last year, but did have roles, and it would have been easy for them to decide not to play or not try hard or whatever it is. And all 4 of those guys have just really come up big for us this year. And Parker and Tremaine play on our defensive line, and Levi plays outside linebacker, and Hunter plays inside linebacker alongside Carter Tinker. And those 4 guys have just had tremendous years. And that's what I told, Hunter and Levi both scored on defense in the league game. Levi had a scoop score, and Hunter recovered a blocked punt that Levi blocked for a touchdown. I told them, I may get more satisfaction out of you 2 guys scoring a touchdown on senior night than I do winning the region championship, because you 2 in particular could have just said after last year, I'm done. I'm gonna, Levi plays basketball. He could say, I'm just going to play basketball. Or Hunter could have said, you know what, I'm going to go get a job. But neither one did, and they stuck with it. And those 2, along with Parker and Tremaine, have been just steady for us all year on the defensive front. And then like you said, we the guys that get a lot of notoriety, Carter Tinker and Connor Kinsley and And then Luke Patton has been just tremendous. Luke is a guy that probably took some criticism last year at free safety, making some mistakes and missing some tackles, and he has been so dependable for us back there. And you hear the word coach on the field all the time, but he is a coach on the field, and just a really dependable player for us. And then some younger guys have stepped up, like Cooper Jackson and Riker Engel, have stepped in and played really well for us. And then Mason Chandler, who's a junior as well, who had a great sophomore year, has continued to come into his own. And probably the most dependable of them all is last but certainly not least is Lucas Talent. Lucas is I don't know. I'm gonna probably err on the high side. I'm gonna say he's 5'10", 175. That's probably a little bit on the high side, but he just plays defensive end, and he plays it like it's supposed to be played. He gets held every week. He gets thrown around, but he just keeps showing up and he keeps battling. And he's kind of he's the guy that I would almost. And he's a 2-year starter for us now, and then played a lot as a 10th grader, really. And as a guy that he shouldn't be at his size and weight, he should not be able to play defensive end in 6A football. But and I've had multiple coaches tell me that. They said our game plan was to attack him, and he stands in there and battles every Friday night, and that's kind of what a Fort Payne kid's about to me, and so those guys have all done a really good job on defense, and then of course, like you said, Dax and Brandon get a lot of notoriety. But I'll tell you another guy that he doesn't get quite the the press is Riker Shankles, one of our slot receivers, and another guy. I mean, Riker's a great baseball player, phenomenal baseball player. Easy for him to have said after his sophomore year, I'm gonna focus on baseball and just be a good baseball player. But he likes football. I mean, it's not his favorite. He seems to like me and the coaches and likes being around us. And he's again, I'm gonna err on the high side here. He's probably 5'8", 160, and that's being generous. But plays slot receiver and just tough as they come, makes a lot of plays. He was another big play in that Southside game when we were behind. We threw a tunnel screen to him as a deal. He probably should have got 6 yards. He dragged the pile like another 12 or 15. It was one of those plays that kind of got everybody excited. And he did a similar thing in the Gadsden City game. And those are the guys you're talking about. Just, and then, of course, all of our offensive linemen have gotten better as the year have gone. Malcolm and Jaden Jackson are brothers, and they've been the most steady ones. But Hunter Burridge and Blake King and Grayson Hester and Grayson Crawley have steadily come on each and every week. And then Fisher Abbott's another one on offense, like Hunter and Levi are. And easy for Fisher to decide not to play last year, and he hadn't played much as a junior, but he stuck with it, and he had 2 big catches down at Pelham the other night, and he's been steady all year for us. And Kyle Caminiti's another one that was on defense last year. Had some struggles, had to end up kind of unfortunately had to kind of replace him late in the year. He had some struggles at corner, and we had to go with another guy, and didn't really like doing that, but we had to do it. It's one of those situations. And again, Kyle stuck it out, moved him to offense, and been kind of hurt all year, but keeps hanging in there, and he's made a lot of really good plays for us as well. So, and there's a lot of guys I probably left off, but that's I think what's enjoyable about coaching here in particular is just those type kids you talked about. That if we don't have those kids, we don't win the games that we've won, and we've got a lot of them, and they've been very, very. And when we give out an award every week called Mr. Dependable, and we don't have enough of those to go around, to be honest with you, because we've got a lot of guys that deserve it each and every week.
Well, I want to ask you one more question. I'll let Howie ask a couple of questions. The Gadsden City win, I think it's easy to say, and I think it would be, it wouldn't be bad for me to say, probably one of the biggest wins in school history. I mean, Fort Payne was 0-6 against Gadsden City. You had played them tough a couple of times, and the stars finally fell right, and like we talked about back at the very first, at some point you were going to smash in that glass and get this done. And I remember when you were team of the week, you had spoke about, we should have done this a long time ago, but that brought a lot of notoriety to this football program.
Yeah. And of course, obviously I was joking when I said that. I mean, those guys are phenomenal down there. And it was everything hit the right way that night. It was they had some key guys out, and I've told people that. And they said, "Well, coach, it doesn't matter. I mean, you still had to beat them," and that's right. But now they had a couple of D linemen out that were difference makers. And then one of their skill position receivers didn't play much, and then they had another guy that got hurt during the game. So they were not at full strength, but we played well. We played aggressive. We were excited, and we made we converted some key plays. Dax had 3 third-and-goal pass completions for touchdowns, which is I don't know if I've ever seen that, to be honest with you. One of them was 15 yards. One was a 3rd-and-goal from the 15 that he hit Carter Tinker on a corner route. I mean, that was a huge play in the game. And then our defense made some situations where they were down inside the 15 with a chance to score, and we held them to field goal. So you take those 5 possessions, the 3 where we convert 3rd and goal. There's a 4-point difference on all 3 of those, and then you can the 2 possessions where we held them to field goals. That's a difference of 20 points right there in field goal and touchdowns, and that was obviously the difference in the game. So one of those games that could have easily gone their way, and there's no doubt, like I said earlier, if we played them 20 times, they'd probably beat us 19. But our kids made the plays and made some great plays when they needed to make them, and we got the breaks, and like you said, I think it will. It'll go down as one of the bigger wins for sure, because they for sure had a better team, and I don't say that take anything away from our kids. I mean, they had a good football team, but our kids found a way, and again, that toughness, and again, go back to I don't know why we lost those first 2, but maybe that's why we lost them. Maybe why we lost them because we were going to have a great night against Gadsden City, and it took everything we had to pull that one off.
Yeah, of course, I think the crossroads came in that Southside game that led to that Gadsden City win, because you don't know where you was going to go if you just started out 0-3. It would have been tough. But I think that's what got the ball rolling. Well, Howie, you want to ask a few questions before I go further?
Yeah, Coach. You're wondering why you lost those games. It could be because the reason was it took the pressure off of you, as far as instead of trying to go 10-0, 0-2, the monkey's off your back, just go out and play and have a good time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe we had too high. You want to have high expectations. I think everybody talks about that. Pressure is a privilege, and I do believe that. I mean, I think this group put a lot of pressure on themselves to win. They wanted to go 10-0, and obviously, looking back on it, we're a few plays away in each of those games. Even though the Scottsboro game looked like a blowout, that game was 7-0 at the half, and we had missed a field goal and fumbled inside the 10. So. A couple things go different that night. We had a chance that night as well, and of course the Guntersville game went down to almost the final play. But I agree with you. I think that may have relaxed us, and of course it didn't feel like it relaxed us down the south side, because we didn't play very well down there either. But once we kind of survived down that south side, I do think it kind of got us going in the right direction, and we've played really well. Sorry about these lights. Get these lights fixed up here.
The night the lights went out in Fort Payne.
It's time and lights will get
it's you. Only twice.
Yeah, but anyway, yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think it definitely allowed us to play, and I think it taught us lessons too of everything matters, and I don't know that we were ready to play against Scottsboro, but it's almost like we were almost overconfident, if that makes sense. And then the Guntersville game was, we made some mistakes in the second half, and give them credit, but we made some mistakes that you can't make. And I think you got to have those lessons sometimes, and they're hard lessons to swallow. But when you make them and see how it costs you a game, then maybe you don't make them as much moving forward.
Coach, you do something after games that I'm kind of curious about. After the games, you stay on the field for 20, 30 minutes after the games. What's the purpose in that?
Myself, or are you talking about?
Yeah, yes, you.
Yeah, it's ironic you said that. The only time we didn't stay on the field this year was the Scottsboro game, and I told our coaches that I typically always stay out here, but I think we're going to be better off to go inside, because I know there's going to be a big celebration, and we need to kind of let them have their moment. And so we just kind of exited the field and went to the locker room and kind of let them have their moment. And that's not really what I wanted to do, but that's the right thing to do. I thought was to give them their due respect for winning that game. And I think this day and age, it's everybody wants to see their baby, so to speak, after the game and get those pictures and get them on Facebook and all that stuff. So we just started a long time ago saying, hey, we're gonna meet on the field. We're gonna talk to the kids real quick, and we're gonna tell them what what's going on next week or whatever, and then we're gonna break it down and release them to their families and let them enjoy Friday night and let them and as far as myself, I've told people before, I try to win or lose. I try to kind of get myself kind of away from everybody. It's who I am, I guess. I mean, you know, sometimes win or lose, there may be somebody in that group that's not happy with me for whatever reason, because somebody didn't score a touchdown or because somebody didn't play or whatever. And that's just kind of part of coaching that, you know, you don't always like, but it's part of it, because, you know, if I get it, if your child didn't play and you want them to play, you have a right to be disappointed. And so I just kind of remove myself over to the middle of the field and talk to my wife or my dad if he makes it down there, and just try to spend some time, you know, with my family, and let everybody kind of clear out, and then I go in the locker room after that. So I guess that's the reason. I just kind of let people have their Friday night, and I don't want to be not a distraction, but I don't want to be an interference of any of that. And I just kind of do my own thing, kind of away from everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, with this time change, it gets dark earlier. How does that affect your practice schedule?
It doesn't really. I see, you know, we're fortunate enough now with the turf field that, you know, we're able to practice on that field if we need to. And so obviously we can just turn the stadium lights on, and our kids actually, I think, kind of thrive off that, to be honest with you. I think they enjoy when the lights come on and practice is going on. So it doesn't really affect us a whole lot, and we're blessed. The school system, you know, doesn't give us any grief about turning the stadium lights on, and then they'll let us practice as long as we need to. And so it doesn't really affect us at all, I guess.
Coach, I always ask everybody. I mean, everybody that's on here, I always ask them this one question, and I can't let you get going without asking you this. Is there any superstitions, anything that you have to do before game day or before the game starts?
No, you know, I've got a routine. I'm gonna talk to the team about the same time, and you know, we're gonna do about the same kind of stuff in the locker room, the same type of pregame schedule. But I don't know if that's superstitious as much as it is just a routine. I don't know if this is superstitious or not, but my dad always had a manila folder folded up in his back pocket that he kept his plays on. He hand wrote his plays on there and wrote his notes on there that he was going to use for the game. And I have a, you know, we I guess we've evolved in the computer age, and we of course type all of our stuff up on a play sheet and condense it down and laminate it. And but I still keep my play sheet inside a manila folder. Now, there's usually nothing written on the manila folder, maybe a couple of notes, but most of my stuff's on the sheet. But maybe that's a little superstitious of having that same manila folder that I saw my dad, you know, have all those years. So that if there's a superstition, that may be one, I guess.
So you say you kind of take notes. Do you take the notes during the game and then it reminds you of something at halftime or after the game, or are you able just to remember everything and not have to write anything down?
Most time, if it's a note, it's something at halftime that we talk about, maybe a play coming out that we want to try, or a different, you know, formation or a way to do things that we would maybe had not necessarily prepared on that week, but may have made an adjustment at halftime. I guess I'm probably not smart enough to make notes during the games that's going on. I can't process all that fast. I see guys doing that on the sideline. I'm like, I don't know how I'm just trying to call the next play. I can't think about making a note about it. But I guess I've got a pretty good memory and photographic memory about stuff, and I'm able to, you know, kind of remember what happened from series to series. But yeah, I can't process everything that fast to be able to go. And plus, my wife will tell you if I did write it down, I probably couldn't read it anyway because I had my handwriting.
That's no problem.
I may look back and say, "What did I write? I don't even know what it was." I better just remember it, and because of me writing it where I can see, it's probably not real high chance of that happening.
Yeah, we got a viewer question real quick. It's pertaining to the kicking game. CH12 says, why don't you let him kick more field goals and stuff during the game? Kickers are athletes too. #kickers rule.
Yeah. That sounds like somebody I know. CH12, man, gave it away.
Yeah.
He's done a phenomenal job. I tell people all the time that, if you would have seen where Connor was in the 9th grade when Alex was a senior, and you would have told somebody, all right, that he's going to make every extra point in his career except for one that was blocked, and he's going to make every field goal in his career except for 2, and one of those was blocked. So essentially, he's going to miss 1 kick in 3 years. If you'd have told somebody that when they were watching him as a 9th grader warm up with Alex out there on Friday nights, they'd said, I'll bet you everything I got that won't happen. I mean, there's no way that'll happen. And he has been so consistent and so steady, and improved every year. His first year, we might could try one from 35 to 40 yards, something like that. That was about his range. And then last year we got it out to where he could get Elmore out there 46, 47, 48. And now this year he's made, of course, everybody knows about the 56 and 57 yarder down at Southside, and but he made a 53 yarder at Pelham the other night. And I didn't think it was delay game, but it was apparently there must have been a bang call. I thought we were okay on time, but since it was a delay game, it must have happened right as we snapped it. But he knocked a 53 yarder through down there, and that was no, down the south side it was a little breezy that night. Had a little wind behind us down the south side that helped us a little bit. But that one at Pelham the other night was no wind at all, and it was 53, and it was good from 57, 58. And and he's gotten so consistent this year on his touchbacks into the end zone too. He's maybe missed 2 or 3 all year that he hadn't kicked in the end zone. Yeah, he is falling right in that line with the McPhersons, as he is a weapon, and we are fortunate to have him, and we're going to try to enjoy every moment we can until this thing's over with him. And then, of course, Hayden Chambers is right behind him, ready to go next year. Hayden's is a good kicker as well, but Connor has not done anything to lose the job, and not going to lose the job as long as he keeps kicking the way he's kicking. And he's done a great job for us, and but Hayden's done a good job punting for us as well, and also kicking off. But that's what every coach I see on Friday night is, what are y'all doing to get all these kickers? And I said, man, I ain't promise you that. I wish I could take credit for it, but I've just been fortunate enough, and I joke about the McPherson effect all the time, but it's the truth. I mean, Logan started it, and Evan continued it, and then Alex brought it on through, and Connor and Hayden watched all that happen, and they wanted to be just like them, and now they are. And Connor has been, phenomenal. I think he's 24 of 26 on field goals for his career, and then I think he would have had the state. That's the only disappointing thing that's happened this year. He would have had the state record for most consecutive extra points. It would have been, I think 111 was the record, and we would be well past that right now. But we had one block versus Mortimer Jordan that wasn't his fault. It wasn't like it was low or he was late kicking it. We just had a protection issue, and they got through there and blocked it. And that's part of it. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier, Phil. But it takes everybody. It takes 11 guys to make a field goal too. And it's not just one guy. So, but he has done outstanding. I mean, you can't say enough about his success.
Yeah, of course, you've won 52 games at Fort Payne, and I'm sure kicking game has kept you in a lot of those to give you opportunities to win games. Coach, I want to ask you this before we get out of here for sure, is community is so important to a high school football program. And I know you play against teams, especially from the Huntsville area, that don't have a lot of community support. I'm sure you want to about down to Fort Payne fans, get to the games, get involved, be loud, be vocal, because it's so important for these kids to have the community involved in games, home and away. It doesn't matter where you play at, but come playoff time, you especially need these fans.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's been interesting here this year. I feel like we've had a more vocal, supportive crowd. And maybe it's just been the environment. On the road more than we've been at home. Our crowd's been good at home. We've been big crowds. But, we had a big crowd out at Pelham the other night, and they were into the game, and they were excited, and same thing down at Southside that night. And so our fans have always traveled well, but, that would be, if anybody's watching tonight, that would be my challenge to them is, we need the same energy and vocal, loud crowd at home as we get on the road, and we have usually big crowds, but I don't know if we get a little more comfortable being at home and maybe not quite as loud. But we've had great support pretty much everywhere we've gone this year, and like you said, it gets tough starting Friday. I mean, they're all tough, and there's no game out there that is just a game you show up and win. You've got to play at a real high level against everybody you play, and it'll be no different with Pell City. They've got a really good team and a really good coaching staff, and they're battle tested with who they've played all year, and they've got 5 losses to 5 of the better teams in the state, and so we're gonna have to play at that same type of level we played against Gadsden City to just have a chance. To be honest with you, we're going to have to play really well, and we need that crowd behind us supporting us.
Yeah, well, I think this team, last year, I think they kind of got their monkey off their back. The Mortimer Jordan win got Fort Payne out of the first round, and it's been talked about that Fort Payne gets to the playoffs, but then they don't do well. But they got that monkey off their back last year, got to move to the second round. And I think this team actually wants, they're in that mode to where, hey, we expect to win. We want to take that next step. Do you feel that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think, anybody – in the state would probably tell you that, our region up here in North 6A and this region 8 has always been maybe a little bit of, I don't know if underachieving is the right word for the playoffs, but don't have the record against the other regions that you would like. But part of that is how good the other teams from the other regions are. I mean, I don't necessarily think that we've got a bad region up here. I just think that when you cross up with Clay Chalville and Mountain Brook and Oxford, and then of course we're getting Pell City. That's 4 really, really good football teams, and so if all 4 of them were to beat all 4 of us Friday night, that'd be disappointing, and it'd be easy for them to say, well, Fort Payne's region is not any good. But I would maybe go on the other thing and say, those teams are really good and they're good football. And that's just what you get this time of year. And so I think, to your point, I think our kids are excited. Our kids are confident, but our kids are very aware of, the quality football team that we're going to get Friday night. And you can look at their record and say, well, they're 5-5. They must not be very good. And anybody that says that didn't watch any film for sure, and didn't keep up with Pell City throughout the year, because their losses are to Coosa Christian, who I know it's a 2A, but it's a really, really good 2A. And then they lost to Clay Central, which is a really, really, really good 5A, a 10-0 5A, in fact. And then, like I said, Clay Chalville, Oxford, Mountain Brook. The only person they didn't lose to, I guess, was Alabama. They should have played them since they were on the playing those good teams. But so a lot of people would be 5-5 with that schedule, and so that I think our kids understand that, and it'll be a. I'm sure Pell City's thinking the other way. They're like, hey, we're excited to go play because we're not having to play Clay Chalville or Clay Central or Mountain Brook, whoever it is. So they'll be excited about coming up here and playing us, because it'll be different type of competition. So, but yes, we're excited about it. We know that when you tee it up this Friday, that it's you got to play well. There's just no unless you're one of these just dominant teams that's just that much better than everybody else. You're going to have to play at a high level to win, but I think our kids they're ready for that challenge. I think that's why they got excited about the Gadsden City game. We had to play at a high level to win that night, and we did. And I think that's why these kids like playing. And the same thing will go this Friday. We'll have to play really, really well, but I think that's why you play too.
Yeah, of course, too, hats off to you, Coach. You play a difficult non-region schedule, and I think that leads to success in the playoffs. Like you was talking about, if your region's not there, you do have those challenging games outside the region, and that's what leads to playoff success.
Yeah, we try. Of course, it's always been that way, I guess, here for a while. And, Dad always had a pretty tough non-area schedule back in those days, but Guntersville, Scottsboro, Mortimer Jordan, even though they only won 3 games this year, they're in the playoffs. They beat Gardendale. They played a tough region, and they played a tough non-region schedule. They played Hartselle and Coleman and different teams like that. So, and then, you mentioned Pelham. I mean, Pelham finished 1-9, but when you look at Pelham's schedule, I mean, they lose to Spain Park and Ben Russell and Helena and Chelsea. And so, I mean, it's not like they lost to a bunch of teams that weren't very good. They play a tough schedule as well. So, it's, again, I think it helps you, just like I'm sure it's helped Pell City playing all those good teams. We hope it's helped us too. And even though those 2 losses early were hard to stomach, we knew it helped us too, because we played 2 good football teams that made us better and made us realize what we had to do to improve.
Coach, we appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Phil,
I want to ask one thing, Howie, before we go. Coach, I want to ask you about this.
Make it quick because we're running out of time.
Yeah. Coach, the good Lord blesses us with a lot of blessings. What do you feel like is your best attribute that you are able to instill in others on and off the field?
I'll say real quick, I try to be a good person like my father was and like he was to me. I just want to be fair to everybody and treat them the way I would want to be treated and the way I would want my kids to be treated. And if I can do that, then hopefully I've done something pretty good.
Okay. Very good.
Good deal. Sorry about having cut us off, but our power source is about to run out, so we need to hurry up and get off here. Coach, we appreciate you coming on. Best of luck to you on the playoff run. We expect to see you in Birmingham in 5 weeks.
I'm glad y'all think that. That's good. But hey, you play them one at a time and you see what happens. We're excited about it. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I know our kids are excited for Friday, and that's what makes playing football fun is this time of year.
Hey, can we get a verbal commitment that you'll come back on and join us sometime?
Absolutely. Yeah. You let me know. Enjoyed my time. Loved it. And be glad to do it anytime.
Let me get Connor Hughes off the hook. He didn't send no questions in. I just told him I was going to say that, see what your reaction would be. So I've known him and his family for a long time, so that's why I threw him underneath the bus. So
no, they're great people. And like I said, he's had a great – I felt bad the other night he had that one call back for delay of game. That was unfortunate, but happens sometimes. But he's a great kid and great family for sure.
Absolutely. Coach, we got Coach Chris Elmore here for the Fort Payne Wildcats. Thanks for joining us tonight. Best of luck in the playoffs. And for Phil Harris, I'm Howie Chaney. Coach Chris Elmore, thanks for joining us once again. Best of luck in the playoffs. So good night and God bless everybody.
Thanks.